What's the weirdest, most disgusting thing you've ever seen at a party? At a house party with my boyfriend and a bunch of coworkers. It was late, like a.m., and everyone was pretty wasted. Most of us were playing beer pong in the garage. I had to go pee, so I went inside. I opened the bathroom door and the owner of the company's granddaughter was naked, on her knees in the shower while two guys were pissing on her. Her boyfriend was in the garage and one of the guys lived there. His pregnant wife was asleep upstairs. I turned around and went back to the garage. A minute later, one of the guys came out into the garage laughing about how Trina wanted them to piss on her, so they did. I felt so bad for her boyfriend. He was mortified. More bizarre than weird or disgusting. I was invited to a bachelor party for a guy I don't know, probably around 1982. Arrived to a backyard party with a decent size in-ground pool, hibachi barbecues, a couple kegs tapped. There's a 35-40-foot boat on blocks in the yard. Outboards are often in parts on a table nearby. There's probably 100 guys there, mostly college swimmers. I know about half of them. As the night progresses, about 10 guys are on the roof of the house passing around a bottle of scotch. Another 50 or so people have arrived. More are on the way. The barbecue guys move the hibachis onto the boat to keep drunks from falling on the grills. It's getting crowded. The drunks decide to put the boat in the pool. Maybe 50-60 guys shove this thing into the pool, which sends water everywhere around the pool deck, but also knocks the hibachi grills over into the boat. Seems like an easy fire to put out, but it wasn't. Next thing I know, the pool deck is mobbed with drunk college athletes. They're all trying to splash water onto the boat, beer from the keg taps, ice, a plastic tarp, garden hose, and it's just getting worse. The smoke is choking the guys on the roof, so they're trying to get down. It's only about 12-15 feet, but they're drunk. Some ground-based drunks try to do the human pyramid thing to get them down. The rain gutter pulls away from the house. Lots of shouting, some of it angry. There's going to be a fight soon, plus there's a boat on fire in a pool. Time to go. I grab the two guys I came to the party with and we bolt. We pass police cars and fire trucks coming the other way. A couple days later, there's an article in the local paper with a picture of the groom getting married in the hospital, but no real details about why he fell off a roof and broke his leg 2 days before his wedding. He could not go to the reception. The honeymoon postponed to a later date. No mention of a party or a fire. From other friends I learned that, other than the groom, there were no serious injuries. Damage was confined to the boat, the pool, and the rain gutter. That was probably a fascinating homeowner insurance claim. Wasn't hired, wasn't paid, just liked to do it. In the same vein of weird, I went to a party in high school, in a relatively new subdivision. Some houses, some were still dirt plots, and we get to the front door and knock to come in. The bouncer asks us who we know. My friend says he knows a guy that knows a guy, and so on, that invited us. The doorman says nope and closes the door. So my friend says, let's go around the back. So we go through an empty lot, no fences around since there weren't many houses built, and we go in through the back door. Party is pretty cool. See some friends hang out and steal any beers we could find. Doorman comes around and recognizes us and says we need to leave. We exit the front door and proceed to go around the back again. This happens maybe 2-3 more times, and we had a good laugh about it. The poor girl who was throwing the party and made the stingy rules about kicking people out had her car stolen from the garage, and it was missing for several days before they tracked an iPod Touch or something that was in the car and found it. I've always have a good laugh whenever I drive by that house. So for context, there's a beach in Texas we used to go to on the weekends in my former hometown. Basically, people play loud music and drink and either walk around on the beach or drive from one end to the other back and forth. Thousands of people, lots of craziness like flashing, or people straight up being on the beach. It was always absolutely bananas. So anyway, one time I saw one of my former classmates riding on the hood of a car butt naked dancing for everybody. Then she pulls her tampon out and starts swinging it around. Girl was on something and just pulled down her pants and pooped in front of everyone. Party cleared out real fast after that. It was one of the only parties I've ever. I stumbled into the living room to see a circle of drunk dudes passing a lighter around and taking turns farting on it. That looked hilarious, so I sat on the edge of the couch to watch. Mid-rotation, a random girl in a miniskirt who clearly had one-to-many walked over and asked if she could join. The lads obliged and made room for her. She gets onto the couch and lifts her legs up in the squat position while laying mostly down on her back. The boys were loving this since she had a thong on and it wasn't covering much under that insanely short skirt. She flicks the flame, pushes, and instead of gas coming out, a squirt of diarrhea comes out. But since she was wearing a thong, it kinda split the spray into smaller streams, kinda like how your pee stream sometimes splits. Not much came out, but it was enough to shoot across the floor and land in front of Jude's feet. The howling of that laughter could have caused an earthquake. All the guys on the couch, myself included, were doubled over laughing at this. It was so gross but so unexpectedly hilarious that nobody could do anything but laugh. All while this poor girl turned redder than the cup she was holding and ran out of the room covering her mouth while her friends followed after her. Didn't see her the rest of the night, so I don't know if she left or not, but I hope she didn't remember that happening. I know I certainly wouldn't want to. I've seen a drunken army man in full uniform deep-throat a dildo in the middle of a kitchen full of people as they were chillin' and snacking. I mean, it was weird because it wasn't that type of party. He had just found one of the people's dildos, don't even ask me how, and thought it would be funny to take it downstairs into the kitchen where we all were and stick it down a throat. Awkward. A girl none of us knew appeared inside the house, began hiding beers in the fridge around the apartment, started numerous arguments with the host and their friends, then proudly declared she has lesions on her brain and surgery tomorrow, and that we were alholes. We told her she needed to go, and she took 2 more beers, flipped us off, and stole the lit cigarette from a girl on the back porch as she stumbled off into the night. I met one of those at a party. She was terrifying. I mean, she was super drunk and being obnoxious, but she was also super accurate on her reading of people. I'm super good at masking, like top notch, and I'm really good at insights on other people, and this chick was totally calling me on some really deep hidden dead on. I was like, now I know how other people feel. Then she stole 2 bottles of wine and exited with this up super villain laugh. House party back in the 90s. Local punk band playing hard in the living room. There was a strobe light lighting the band pit. This will be important later. A friend of mine was passed out on the floor, propped up against a wall, just sitting there, totally out of it. My brother snuck up on him and started moving his lower lip like he was singing along. Jostling him around upset him, and he projectile vomited into the pit, with a strobe light lighting the scene. You could watch his puke fly through the air, blink, 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 splash, 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 like a scene from a horror movie. A buddy of mine brought a girl to a party we were having. They were wasted and making out against my car when she turned to throw up all over the hood. He comes over to me to apologize for his date, and I told him they should clean it off, and he said, "Oh no, I did already. I peed on it to get it off." Reminds me of how I had a party once in my parents' basement. One of my buddies invites a girl and his boyfriend. She disappears. I go up 2 floors to my bedroom and she's passed out in my bed with no pants or underwear on, and she pissed my bed. I was not very happy. Also, my parents were home. Does a foam party count? Definitely saw people straight upping on the dance floor. In the late 90s, I worked at a whole nightclub which held foam parties, which wasn't an issue in itself. What was that they'd let people on the dance floor with glasses and bottles. I saw more than a few people get cut badly, but the one that stands out was a lad came staggering out of the foam with a bottle next sticking out of his hand, looking shook. I sent him to the first aid station. About an hour later, the owner came to say that I was fired, which was a relief. It was a horrible job. So I walked off the bar only to find that they'd used the bouncers to remove him from the club into the street. He was sat on the curb with no idea what to do. Luckily, we were 10 minutes from A&E, so I walked him to the doors and popped him in the door. My college roommate used a beer bong to chug a beer with it inserted into his rectum because it gets you drunker. He then stood and forcefully projected diarrhea around the room on pretty much every surface. He then confiscated all of our phones and wouldn't give them back because he thought we secretly recorded it. Grammar mistake bothered me. Also, this person now has his own medical practice. Insanely brilliant and wildly eccentric, but I guess those two often go hand in hand. There was an old bowl of canned clam chowder someone didn't finish for dinner on the table. Someone poured a generous amount of rum chata, cinnamon-flavored cream liqueur into it and started calling it clam chata. One girl was very drunk and hungry, ate it knowing what it was, claimed it was good, then threw up a bit into the bowl. She proceeded to finish the bowl and continued claiming it was tasty. A dude having violent diarrhea in a Sonic 44 ounces styrofoam cup. This was in the backyard of a friend's house with perhaps 100 people at the party. He was squatted over the cup holding his balls up with one hand and holding the cup with his other and ting his brains out. It was more than 44 ounces and he missed the majority of it. Took about 15 seconds from dropping pants to pulling them up, doing his belt and walking through the side gate to the front yard. It was amazing and horrifying. I was at a house party with one bathroom. All night there was one guy being obnoxious and passing out every few minutes. Laying down for 15, then getting up drinking more, rinse and repeat. Eventually he passed out in the one bathroom which caused outrage as people had to rally themselves. A hero tried climbing a drain pipe to get into the bathroom window. On his first attempt he fell about 6 feet and landed on a bin that broke. 3 guys at the foot of the drain pipe helped him up and one said, "Yo, that bin." The 4 of them collectively stamped and kicked the bin like it owed them money until it was in many pieces. Most disgusting, a dude hopped on top of a dresser and pierced his own junk with a hammer and nail. Weirdest, a couple had gotten married in high school. We were all hanging out at my cousin's house, drinking and smoking. The couple starts arguing. They go outside. A few minutes later, the guy runs into the house screaming, blood all over the back of his shirt. She had stabbed him in the back. We called an ambulance. My boyfriend at the time took the wife to the hospital because she insisted on being there for him. They both got detained on the way. They actually stayed married for over 10 years. I met this man on 3 separate occasions, and I literally only ever knew him as the captain. I don't do drugs, but my friends certainly did. We were at a party and my buddy asked some girl where he could find some Molly, and she says, "You'll have to talk to the captain," and just walks away. We were absolutely mystified as to what that meant. Like an answer to our prayers, the crowd splits for a second and this dude with a comically large pirate hat just appears right in front of us. My friend goes, "Are you the captain?" Without a word he smiles and takes off his hat, revealing a massive bag of Gatorade Blue Molly that was taped to the inside. Then he hands my buddy a little dime bag, gives a very convincing yarg, and disappears into the crowd. I laughed so hard I almost puked, and I swear every time I saw this dude it was like he was some mysterious pirate deity that would suddenly appear with the sole purpose of giving people free drugs and then disappear again. Really more awesome than weird, but still my favorite party story to tell. Definitely the time the guy I was dating for 4 months brought me to his best friend's house party. I was like 20 lol. I liked mingling, so I was chatting it up with his friends and whatnot. I noticed dude had disappeared. Some of his friends also noticed and walked around with me to find him. We proceeded to walk in on him in the middle of a threesome with his best friend's girlfriend and a random lady. Fight broke out, cops were called, and I left and never spoke to any of them again. Ooh. At an outdoor camping party, a guy in a gold Speedo stumbled over to my friends and I and was talking super fast. We couldn't understand a word he said except "Wanna see a helicopter?" I was asking what that is, and before I finished asking he whipped his out and started flinging it around in a counterclockwise motion. We all took off running, and now I know what a helicopter is. I saw the question in this post and was like, oh man, I can finally tell the story of when a guy whipped out his at a party to show everyone what a helicopter is. Seeing as you were the first comment answer I even saw on here, it might not be as rare of an occurrence as I thought. What is rare, however, is that at that same party someone pooped onto the hood of the host's car and smeared it into the shape of a swastika. Everyone suspects the same person to have done it, and it is not the helicopter guy. I feel the need to say that I was only at that party because they were my class and they somehow got the okay to have this party as a sleepover, count as a class trip, so it was kind of mandatory. Years ago, a casual acquaintance shows up to a party, an immigrant with limited English ability. He got drunk like the rest of us and crashed on the couch. The next morning he vomited all over the couch. Just gurgled it up all over the place. I helped clean it up and we sent him on his way. But the thing I can't get out of my mind was how weird that vomit was. It was pitch black, gooey, and smelled odd. It freaked me out, but I just assumed it must have been something to do with the kind of food he ate. He seemed fine, albeit hungover, but thinking about it now really makes me worry if he was really okay. Like, could he have been suffering some kind of internal bleeding without any means to be checked out? This isn't disgusting, but definitely weird and hilarious. I was at a Halloween party with my friend a few years ago. This part isn't the story, but was just a fun part of the night. I was dressed as Jesus, and at the beginning of the party I found someone dressed as a priest. He came up to me and handed me his Bible and told me to read a verse out of it. So I opened it up and he had a flask in it. Him and I were best friends all night. Now the actual story, there was some guy dressed up as a mime, and I never saw him say a word all night. Dude was dedicated. My buddy and I were drinking from a handle of Jack Daniels all night, and near the end of the night we were on the dance floor with about of the handle left. The mime walks up to us, points at the Jack, points at his mouth, and makes the please hand gesture. So we hand it to him, and this champion points it to the sky and drinks a third of a handle of whiskey. We couldn't even be mad. He never spoke a word and took it like a champion. 5 minutes later, he was outside puking his brains out, still never said a word. To this day, I still respect his dedication. At a private function at a rugby club, when one guy, seemingly under no pressure whatsoever, made a bet with everyone that he could kick a conversion from the halfway line or he'd drink everything from the beer drip trays. The mixed alcohol, bits of fluff, and dead FLIs got him absolutely wasted, and he ended up stealing his boss's work van and crashed it into a train barrier. The police found him curled up asleep on a grass verge cuddling a dead badger. I was somebody weird moment. At a house party back in the early 90s, ended up getting really baked in the basement with my roommate and this musician dude who was like twice our age. We're having a good time, and the dude mentions how bad he has the munchies. He says the best chips for when he has the munchies are this specific brand of kettle-cooked chips. I'd for some right now. So I pull a bag of them out of a coat pocket. Pretty awesome, right? Little while later, he says how much he likes chocolate when stoned, especially this specific mint chocolate one, and how hard they are to find. I smile and pull one out of my pocket. By the end of the night, I had done it 4 times, pulling specific snacks out of different pockets. Plus, I was so stoned I was in silent Bob mode. Dude was like, I don't know if that was awesome or scary. I don't know if this is weird but kind of funny. Was at a high school party and I saw some guys in a circle passing a pipe. I'm thinking stoner circle, so I roll one up real quick to join in. Showed them and they're like, let's clear the bowl. They hand it to me and it looks weird and nothing is green. I'm like, what is this? One guy goes, meth. I say, oh, y'all are doing real drugs. I'm not about that, so I'm just gonna light up the J. Pretty cool dudes in all honesty, but I wasn't down for that circle. Morning after a beach party, I didn't sleep, but as the sun was rising, 4 of the surfer dudes started smoking meth together and telling me it was better than coffee before a surf. Suddenly made sense why they didn't need wetsuits in freezing water. Another time a buddy and I went out on the town in a city we had never been to before. We thought we could get accommodation on the night. However, everything was fully booked. So we just partied on, and towards closing time we went to a Turkish bar and smoked some hookah. The table next to us was crowded with large Islander guys and they invited us to join. We ended up going home with them as they were nice enough to offer us shelter after hearing our story. Woke up the next morning to breakfast and joints, then they all put their gang patches on and dropped us off back at our car. Nicest blokes ever. Had a kid throw up in my kitchen sink in college to a degree where it was almost full. Being drunk and poor, I said to the party, if anyone unclogs this sink, I'll give you $5. My friend walks up to me and screams, you idiot, that's a steal, as he rolled up his sleeve and just shoved his arm in full throttle to unclog it. I remember how quickly he jumped on it and did it that I genuinely thought I was being a drunk idiot by offering, but looking back, it's probably the best $5 I've ever spent. I got invited to this ratchet rave 6 to 7 years ago in Paris. It was early in the morning and I am peeing in the urinal. I am struggling to pee and the guy next to me tries to look at my junk and says, you too. I hate when it happens. I burst out laughing and some random guy in his late 30s is walking like a penguin with his pants around his ankles, smelling like It was awful. He was rambling about something and jumped butt first into the sink. He started cleaning himself and spraying water everywhere. Just disgusting. I left literally 3 minutes later. Never went back. A friend of mine from uni halls had a real bad habit of vomiting and passing out in the shared toilet during parties, so one time after I don't see him for a while I find him in the same toilet. He is passed out with his head in said toilet, which is full of vomit. He wouldn't wake up, so I decided to flush the toilet with his head still in it, and by God, the sight of that mostly vomit water swirling around his head was something else. He woke up pretty quickly. Oh, and before anyone calls me an-hole, he had tried to set my duvet on fire that same night, so I was not in the mood for patience by this stage of the night. Back in high school, there was this one girl who was an absolute unit and not very hygienic to boot. She showed up at one party but kinda vanished halfway through and no one even noticed. Later that night, I had to get something from the host's room, and when I opened the door, I was greeted by the sight, smell, and sound of some dude just railing this girl from behind. And the guy was this skinny little dweeb. You seen that pic of Mogwai from Jungle Book with the elephant? There's your visual. She making a sound not unlike a bear trying to a pine cone. But the smell, oh sweet Jesus, the smell. A mix of old tuna, open, and unwashed balls. I literally vomited on the spot. They noticed and just kept going. I yelled at them to get the of my friend's room, and once they left, I ran down and grabbed my friend to let him know what happened. He went upstairs. A cry of disgust confirmed he entered the room, and he immediately came down and kicked everyone out. It took days for the smell to clear. My boy had to sleep on the couch during that time. My friend sadly passed a few years back, but I'm sure he'd love the response to the tale of the desecration of his room. I don't think he touched tuna until the day he died. I'm keeping the Mogwai, the crossover we never knew we wanted. I had a house party and my friends and I went out back to smoke a bowl with a bunch of girls. They passed the pipe around a circle of 8 people, and when it got to me at the end, I ripped it as I noticed my friend with evil grin trying to stop me half-assed attempt. They had loaded the pipe with the contents of the shop vac hose, which was 98% Labrador Retriever hair. I was more appalled that all the girls hid it and didn't notice burning hair. What the? A friend of mine drank too much at a college party. I was sitting on the back porch on a cool autumn night and I heard the sound of what I could only describe as a bucket of water being poured onto concrete. He comes stumbling out from around the side and I chat with him for a bit. Suddenly he runs over to a dark circle in the backyard and vomits right in the middle. I am shocked and ask why he threw up on the small kid's trampoline. He responded, "I thought it was a fire pit." Apparently the next day, the kid from upstairs came down to play on the trampoline to discover the mess and went back inside crying.